All right, so good morning. And I'd like to sort of briefly describe what we achieved this season, and almost 6 weeks of excavations, starting from one of two northern trenches in the newly open TPC area. This trench number 2. And what I would like to start with is just to explain a little bit the stratigraphy of the whole trench by sort of pointing out to the big destruction that we recorded in this trench, caused by this huge truncation that you see here and there, and also in this southern section, that badly destroy everything that was sort of deposited after the Neolithic until the bottom of the trench today, with the Neolithic building that I'm going to talk a little bit about after that. So in that section you see a very nice layer of medan that was probably deposited against this building. Okay, so we are having like a huge medan area in this part of the trench, and then this medan was truncated by the later cut that I mentioned. But before the truncation happened, we are having a big complex of ovens, post-Neolithic in date, probably Bronze Age, that destroyed the eastern wall of building 110, and they were sort of a part of some kind of activities going on further to the west. We don't quite understand the nature of these activities, but anyway, we managed to identify 3 ovens from different chronological period. They were very, very high and very solid constructions, like 1 meter and 20 centimeter high, with a dome superstructure, so it is quite unusual. So in this section it is a continuation of the same truncation that you see is going like that down to the floor of this newly excavated and exposed building, and further to the east you see another very sort of jagged truncation and a very interesting sequence of occupation with some floor and fire installation. They were post-Neolithic in date, and we found a cluster of barley in this corner. This corner actually is very interesting to understand actually what was going on in terms of occupation activities after the end of Neolithic, and clearly this is sitting on top of the Neolithic layers and is going to be analyzed in details at the post-Ex phase, and it's very kind of promising part of the trench. So now I'm just sort of moving to the north a little bit to another building that we excavated. We actually exposed last year, and we kept excavating this year. Is building 110, and the building was recorded by Mellard during his excavation in 1961, and this is building number 5 according to his publications. And we basically focus on removing an infill of the building, which was kind of unclear because we found a lot of human remains on top of the upper part of this infill, and it's kind of difficult to understand of how this human remains happen to be deposited in this place. But anyway, we just kept continuing until we get to the current level. This is not the floor level. However, after reanalysis of the architecture and all these bricks, we are pretty confident that we're having 2 levels of buildings in here. This is actually the bottom of building 110 going up there, and then you have something different that is we don't quite understand going underneath. So 2 superimposed building and houses, and we are going to next year we're going to remove this upper part of the structure and to see what the alignment and layout of the underlying buildings looks like. And interestingly, we didn't find any floor of building 110, which is striking and strange, but at the same time very similar to what we had in TP area a couple of years ago in building 74, with this level TPN, And the same situation, very solid bricks of that kind, sandy bricks, yellowish, very nicely done, but there was no floor in this building as well. So this is a very similar situation, and it made me think that actually this is a contemporaneous structures to TPN in TP area that excavated a couple of years ago. So this would somehow correspond with the stratigraphic observation and relation to the Mellard area. So it would be like level 2, maybe level 3 according to Mellard. And as you see, this building was truncated by Hellenistic and pre-Hellenistic peat that you see all over the place. And this is particularly interesting peat because this seems to be the oldest one in the area. And I don't think that it is Hellenistic. It's probably somewhere before the Hellenistic period. And interestingly, we found 2 dog skeletons in one of the little peat that was sitting on top of this big one, which is very unusual for Çatal, and we are going to get some radiocarbon dates to see where they're coming from. But anyway, this peat turned out to be very interesting because it truncated both walls, the building number 10 and this building that is sitting underneath somewhere here. And then we know we sort of managed to recognize a very interesting stratigraphic relation. There's one building, second building, and we managed to identify the third building like 2 weeks ago, more or less. That is, you don't see it quite clearly, but has like a solid wall and a plaster from both sides. So there is one building to the south and another one to the north, and both walls were plastered. You see very solid plaster on that side and a plaster on the other side. So 2 probably contemporaneous building that coming from earlier levels, maybe level 4 or something, according to Mellard. Obviously, we don't know what is going on in this part of the trench, but because we decided to concentrate in here and over the last 2 weeks managed to recognize and reveal the number of Neolithic structures. This is now building 121, and as you see, we found a sequence of platforms against the eastern wall of the building, with this platform with probably burials underneath, and that platform that got truncated at some point. It looks now as if this was a post-retrieval peat, and interestingly that this peat was built against the eastern wall, which is kind of unusual, and we have to sort of understand the situation next season. And then eventually this latest platform was added to the whole thing, and we know that there was a very interesting activities going on in the area, because we found a fire spot in the building infill, and 2 corresponding pits that probably are coming from the same time that you see here and there. And stratigraphically, this is absolutely certain that they were dug within an infill. So this is nothing to do with Hellenistic or any kind of post-Neolithic activities. It is a part of activity after building went out of use or was sort of formally abandoned, and they just somehow started to live in this area. And then we know that it was reconstructed at least twice, as indicated by analysis of this section. We have a very thin, solid, nicely looking floor that is like 5 or maybe 4 centimeters underneath the current surface. This is clearly the floor as well, of some kind of occupational level, very solid stuff. And we have this little hearth sitting on this floor, as well as the kind of beano pedestals. We don't know exactly what is inside. And while excavating, we managed to identify that the floor of the building is sort of nicely split up into 2 sections. The northern section, which you can call clean, really with no organic material, very nicely kept, and the area further to the south, which is dirty, and then we have a fire spot like this one that is a kind of indicative of some kind of activity, temporal activity going on the floor that was just found next to this proper fire installation. It is therefore quite interesting to look at these different things going on after the building went out of use or was sort of abandoned. And interestingly enough, we found a fragment of painting, especially the eastern wall. It was a nice geometric regular painting, and we know that it was just painted at least twice. The conservation team did some tests on fragments that we found in infills, and we know there are two levels of painting, slightly different ones. And what is particularly, I think, interesting and maybe unusual is that we have entire northern wall painted as well. So there's a long wall, unfortunately badly preserved and only partly visible because everything else got sort of truncated later on. But you see the white paint all over the place, which seems to have the same pattern as the one that you see on the eastern wall. And we have been working with a number of specialists over the last couple of weeks, and we asked them to prioritize kind of a number of different contexts. We did infills on both buildings, and the results were, especially in that one, kind of contradictory. Some people were saying that it's more like fill deposit, and the others indicated that it might be rather median kind of layer. So there was kind of contradictory, but in here was more coherent. I have to say there was very clear what that they actually were dealing with a fill of the room in this building. And then particularly interesting for palabotanies and charcoal people was this median that I mentioned at the very beginning, and this fire spot with a lot of very clear botanical kind of remains, barley, I don't know, wheat or something like that. So that was quite interesting. Okay.